And welcome to Wednesday Night Slides number 63. Tonight we got a bit of a variety, it's mostly all trains, nothing unusual that in that regard tonight, but some interesting stuff at the end I think you'll find. We're going to get started here. And our first stop on today's trip is going to be a trip from September 2012. We're going to head up to the Adirondack Scenic up in New York State, above Utica. This is for a railfan day I went to. I'm just trying to adjust some stuff here. There we go. Where's my zoom? Figure it out later. And they had just painted up their RS-18Us, so into this really attractive paint scheme. Started off with a ride. This is from the back platform of the observation car, heading south from Thundera down towards Utica. Station along the line, now a private residence. If you have any questions or comments, by the way, feel free to jump in, to unmute yourself at your space bar on your computer and say what you want, and we'll move along. We got down to the runaround. Here's the F units that were pulling us, running around the train. And the view from the back of the observation car.
Looks like they had a good feast there.
Yeah. Did a photo run by at one point on the way back up. And then afterwards, I chased the trip with the F units. And a quasi New York Central scheme. The RS-18Us got out for a trip. What was really unusual was after we finished for the day and took our dinner break, the Mohawk, Adirondack, and Northern had a locomotive that they brought in for display for the railfan event. And while we were on our dinner break, this rapper and his posse showed up to do a music video. And so here they are getting ready to shoot the video. Now, all the stuff they did, they had the music was already recorded. All they were doing was making the video. They're lip syncing and dancing to the music, but you really can't fake playing a trumpet. So here's the trumpet player tuning up, because he was going to play along with the pre-recorded music, and the lady there is the director of the video. So here we are getting ready to get going with the posse up, getting ready on the train here.
Is that you with the purple shawl?
It is not. They needed a conductor since they're doing a train video. So the lady on the far right up on the gangway, she's a conductor for Adirondack Scenic, and she jumped in to do the video. You can see they shot it with a DSLR. The guy on the ground there with the backwards baseball cap is actually shooting the video. The girl with the blue hair is holding up the boombox that is playing the music. Then everything will get overlaid and synced in post-production. So here they are jamming out on the locomotive. Once again, the person on the ground there is holding the boom box that's playing the video or playing the music while they do their whatever it is they're doing up on the engine. They wanted to do a shot of a moving train, but of course the engine is not live here. It's just sitting there on display. So one of the rail fans volunteered his pickup truck, and the cameraman got up onto the top of the cab and the truck was used as dolly. He could, they drove by the folks on the engine, and he shot video to simulate the train moving. Then afterwards, we asked the rapper if he'd mind posing for a couple of shots. I have no idea who he is. But anyhow, two of his dancers were had their hair in the same color as Mohawk, Adirondack, and Northern's colors. So we did a shot with a couple of shots with them. Once that was all done, it was time for our night photos in front of the Thundera depot. Alco on the left, EMD cab unit in the middle, and an EMD switcher on the right. And just a variety of scenes we shot. The fellow on the ground there is Don Shadrack. He arranged the railfan event. He's a volunteer up at Adirondack Scenic. The F units departed, but we still had the Alco and the EMD switcher. And there's Don. They had 3 or 4 railfan days or railfan weekends up there in the late 2000s, early 2010s. They haven't done anything up there that I know of since. Last one I can remember was 2013. But Don is getting involved again up there. He had stepped away for a while. He's getting involved again up there, and he wants to start doing railfan weekends again. So maybe at some point we'll be heading back up to Thundera. Nice Boston and Maine caboose there behind the switcher, next to the freight house. And according to the side, you can rent this caboose. Not sure Boston and Maine had that on the side back in the day, but we're going to move on from there to some current events. Stuff I've done over the past month. This is my first big month getting back really active again since the surgery. It started off beginning of the month. I was giving a program to the Lackawanna and Wyoming Valley chapter of the NRHS up in Avoca near Wilkes-Barre, Scranton, and drove up there. My route up there took me across the ex-Reading Main line, now Norfolk Southern, at Fleetwood. So I stopped there to take a break for about 90 minutes. This train showed up as soon as I got there. Then nothing else came for the next hour and a half. But yeah, I was just killing time. My real goal was to get over to Reading, North Reading actually, to the Reading and Northern Railroad and chase their train NRFF, the North Reading Fast Freight, which originates at their yard in North Reading. And I picked it up at West Leesport and chased it on its way north. Here it is coming through Molino, just above Port Clinton. Notice the old Reading shelter has been moved there. I think it is the original Molino shelter. It had gone away for a while and then has been placed back in Molino, but not in its original location. It's back from the tracks at this point. Reading and Northern has painted some of their locomotives for exclusively for their fast freight service, such as these two SD50s leading the train this day. Coming up through East Monomoy Junction. Now, this is a chase I've done several times, but not with a freight train. I've done it several times with their steam power, because this is the route that goes from North Reading up to Jim Thorpe, at least as far as Nesquehoning Junction. There go the fast freight 50s. Next was Nesquehoning Tunnel, which isn't really a tunnel, it's a highway overpass. If you look carefully in the near the very top of the picture, between the trees, you'll see the guardrail for the road that goes overhead there. Just below here is where the line splits. The steam train goes down into Jim Thorpe, which is just a few miles ahead. The fast freight diverges here, crosses the Lehigh River, heads up through Lehigh Gorge, and reemerges from the gorge up near Whitehaven, Pennsylvania. So here we are up in Whitehaven. The building there is the original Lehigh Valley Roundhouse. You can see they put in the footprint of the turntable in the parking lot here in the foreground. The Roundhouse has now been repurposed to the library and a welcome center. Then up to Penobscot. This is where I broke off. Of course, I was only, at this point, conveniently enough, I was only 15 minutes from where I was given the banquet program, or the NRHS program. The building here at Penobscot, while it looks like it's an authentic Reading building, we're not on the Reading, and it was built somewhat new. I would say new construction, but it's 20 years old now, if not older. But Reading and Northern built it. Following day, I was right back up there again in anthracite country. Went to Ashland, Pennsylvania for a photo event featuring Lehigh Valley Coal number 123. This locomotive has spent the last 50 years, give or take, as number one, the Henry Clay, working at the Pioneer Tunnel and Steam Railroad. Pioneer Tunnel Coal Mine and Steam Railroad. And this year, it was decided to return the locomotive for the first time in 4 decades or more to its original lettering and number. So Dak Dillon and Mark Turkovich put on a photo event, a late afternoon into night event with the locomotive. You can see it normally hauls these little tourist cars behind it. It's a 3/4 mile long line. But they did a variety of photo run-bys. When Pioneer Tunnel first announced they were going to put the locomotive back into its original lettering, I said, boy, I have to see that. But I wanted to do it in some kind of a controlled environment without tourists around. And darn if Dak and Mark didn't like come up with a photo charter like 2 days later. I'm like, yeah, I'm in, definitely. There's our engineer for the day. And then when it got to be nighttime, we did some photos. They did some stationary photo stops, but they were geared more towards video. So a lot of this stuff is actually with the train moving. And fortunately, my camera is good enough to capture a lot of this with the high ISOs. And then back at the yard, they uncoupled the tourist cars and did a couple of run-bys with just the locomotive. And then they brought out their coal mine battery-powered locomotive and posed it next to the steam engine. And there's a crew that put it on. That's Mark Turkovich on the left, our engineer Josh. Jack Dillon with the radios, and then Brad was our other engineer for the night. Headed over to Eddystone, Pennsylvania. Yes, that's the place where Baldwin Locomotive Works used to be located. Eddystone is just south of Philadelphia and just 20 minutes from where I am right now. Went over there. First thing I got was this southbound Acela train out of Philadelphia heading towards Wilmington, Delaware. The reason I was over here, though, is that the second of SEPTA's Heritage Silverliner 4s was released and was heading this direction. SEPTA has taken so far 3 Silverliner 4s and put them back into tributes to SEPTA's heritage. Here's the Penn Central one, which features the Penn Central logo on the right and the old SEPTA Meatball Herald on the left-hand side. This is the second. It followed the Reading one that came out last month. Heading north up to New York State again, with Mike Burkhart and John Regan, heading up to the Rochester and Genesee Valley Railroad Museum up in near Rochester, New York. Our first stop was in Binghamton, actually Conklin. Got this southbound Norfolk Southern train on the old Lackawanna. From there, we picked up, we stopped in Cohocton, which is where the Bath and Hammondsport has its main shop. See what was there. And while we were there, this Alco C425 showed up, switching in Cohocton. That's the old Erie station next to it. And then we got up to Rochester and Genesee Valley. They had an event going on to celebrate the arrival of their newest locomotive, Livonia, Avon, and Lakeville S2 number 72. They just got it running again. And they had it joined up with their other LA&L locomotive, RS1 number 20. These were actually the first and second locomotives purchased by the LA&L way back when. And the museum now has both of them. So they did a variety of things, double headers, and posed them side by side. For this shot here, I went up this hillside here. First, I know it's not much, but it's the first hillside of any size that I've climbed since my surgery. So this is a minor victory here. I knew I could get up. I wasn't quite sure about getting down, and I was correct about that. Fortunately, Matthew was there to lend me a shoulder to help me back down the hill. But getting there. The museum packages a lot of cool things along it, including signals. Here we see a set of ex-Baltimore and Ohio position light signals. And these New York Central style signals.
Those are PRR position lights.
The you're right, they're the RPRR, they're all amber. That is correct. B&O would have had no middle element and red and green aspects as well. This is New York Central. Single light searchlight signals. Then it started to rain, and it rained, and it poured rain, and it rained some more. Fortunately, Alec and Mark brought a small blue pop-up tent, and they set it up out in the yard. We all huddle underneath that during the rainstorm. The big tent down in the back of this photo here was set up for the following day for the Rails and Ales event that the museum was hosting. But that would come into play later on, and it's a good thing it was there. For the night photo session, they wanted to go out on the line, but it was pouring rain, just pouring rain. So we brought that little blue pop-up tent down to the depot and set it up down there. And between that and the station eaves, the photographers could stay dry. Then we used that big white tent that for the Rails and Ales event and set the lights underneath that, which kept the lights dry. Otherwise, this would not have happened because it was pouring rain. And the strobes just don't like rain. Did a couple of setups here. By this time, my lens is getting a little bit wet. You can see a little bit of flare here from moisture because it was raining so hard. This would come into play the following day. You'll see why in a minute. The next morning, we went over to Brooks Avenue Yard in Rochester. Genesee, Wyoming had just painted 2 locomotives in the original Genesee, Wyoming paint scheme, orange with the black whiskers on the front, to celebrate its 125th anniversary. We found the number 125 up at the engine terminal. Unfortunately, it was nose coupled, so we couldn't get a real good roster shot of it. And the other one was they painted is this one here, the 1899, the year that G&W was incorporated. And it was kind of sandwiched in between the Brooks Avenue Yard office and those tank cars. So we couldn't get a real good photo of that either. Then we went over to Chili Junction, which is spelled chili, like Skyline Chili, but New Yorkers are weird. They pronounce things funny. So it's Chili Junction. And we had a real parade of trains. If you look at this shot here, you'll see that the middle of the shot is a little bit soft, a little bit foggy. While my camera did quite okay down at Brooks Avenue Yard, the dew point hit a certain point at about 10 o'clock in the morning where an inside element of my lens fogged up from the previous night's rain where it gotten wet. So suddenly I was dealing with a lens that wouldn't unfog. So to the rescue is my cell phone. These are all cell phone shots now. Here's a very late Empire Service train. This train was 5.5 hours late, primarily because the previous evening near Niagara Falls, it was involved in a grade crossing accident that resulted in a fatality. So I'm guessing that the crew needed to get rest before turning back. So it's 5.5 hours late here. This westbound came next, stack train. Chili Junction is the point where the New York Central Main Line, which is what this train is on, joins the old West Shore route, which you can see underneath the crossing gate is diverging off to the right. Freights will use both routes. Passenger trains need to stick with the main line so they can get to the Rochester station. Next is the Lakeshore Limited, heading east. And he was followed by another Empire Service train running about 1.5 hours late. The 3 Amtrak trains all came within a half an hour of each other, back to back to back. Once he was out of the way, you see he's crossing over and the Lakeshore was crossing over. They were running around a freight, and that freight was just sitting down the tracks, and here he comes out. We stopped at Cohocton again on the way back home. The sun was out this time, wasn't out the previous day. 2 Alcos were sitting there. The Bath and Hammondsport number 5 in the back there, that is no longer operating, but I think the railroad keeps it around as sort of like a pet. It's one of the first engines Bath and Hammondsport, first diesels Bath and Hammondsport ever had. Long retired, but still sticking around at the shop area. The Alco in the foreground in the Lehigh Valley paint, that is going to the Flour by Rail project. That's flour as in cooking, FLOUR flour. Buffalo was a big point for flour production. And they're working on a museum there that will interpret the history of railroads and flour in Buffalo. And that locomotive will be a part of that museum. By the way, I'm back to my real camera now. It dried out. So this is back to my real camera. Here's two of the two Alcos together again. Then our final stop was in Watsontown, Pennsylvania, near Williamsport, to get this critter for Moran Logistics. Don't know if it runs or not, but looks good. The third of SEPTA's Heritage engines came out. Heritage Silverliner 4s came out. This one in Conrail. When Conrail first took over operations on behalf of SEPTA, after the Penn Central was folded into Conrail, SEPTA put Conrail Heralds on a handful of Silverliners, not many, just a very small number. And Conrail didn't like it, so they came off. The Conrail SEPTA combination is very rare. This is the third of the 4 Silverliner 4s that SEPTA will be doing. The fourth one's not out yet. Might be out next week from what I've been hearing. And that'll have a Pennsy Keystone on the front of it, along with the SEPTA meatball. Sandy Mitchell says the Moran locomotive does indeed run. So the one you just saw a slide or so ago. Finally, to finish off the month, I chased 2102, the ex-Reading 484, now working for Reading and Northern. I've chased it a few times. There's a few shots I wanted to fill in I hadn't gotten yet. One of those shots was off the Route 61 bridge near Port Clinton. That's the Schuylkill River in the background. There was a record album, LP, put out eons ago, Sounds of the Iron Horse Rambles, that had double-headed T1s on the cover on the jacket, taken at this very spot. This spot was also used for photo run-bys in some of the Iron Horse Rambles back in the Reading days. Next was this a grab shot at Miller's Crossing near Molino. From there, I went up to another shot I still needed, Tamaqua Tunnel. This is the steep grade trains blasting out of the tunnel here. It's pretty impressive. From Tamaqua Tunnel, I was with Frank Guerin and Rich Wisniewski, and we broke off here to go do something else. We headed over to Shamokin, where the Shamokin Valley, which is part of the North Shore Railroad family of lines, was running trains for the Shamokin Anthracite Festival of Arts. They ran 2 trips, one in the morning, one in the afternoon. We caught up with the morning trip returning to Shamokin at Sunnyside, Pennsylvania. Same place, Sunnyside. North Shore has their power painted in this Erie Lackawanna type of paint scheme. Unfortunately, the switcher on the back of the trains, it ran pool. The switcher on the back was still a Norfolk Southern black. We got it coming into Shamokin. And then it had a 90-minute layover between trips. That gave us a chance to get some different angles of the train. And then I got this shot down near the tracks in Shamokin, some of the storefronts. The anthracite towns have really fallen on hard times. I could spend a week up there in places like Shamokin or Ashland or Shenandoah, just photographing some of the fallen glory from up that way. That's the same scene in black and white, just to see how it looked. And then the afternoon trip departed. Here it is leaving Shamokin. And this is all from the same spot. I got that first shot, turned 90 degrees, shot up the street here to get this shot here. So it makes a big horseshoe here. Then turn 90 degrees. No, I didn't include that shot. There's a third shot available 90 degrees to the right from that one. We caught up with the train again at Ranshaw at a quarry. And here's the going away shot of the black Norfolk Southern switcher on the back at the loadout at Ranshaw. And we finished with it in Excelsior. All ex-Pennsylvania Railroad track that you're seeing here. From there, it was back to the 2102. It spends 3.5 hours in Jim Thorpe, so folks can tour the town. That's why we had the time to run the Shamokin and back. I went to Nesquehoning and set up here for this shot, about 15 minutes out of Jim Thorpe. I couldn't find anything I really wanted to shoot in Tamaqua, so I wound up down at Zaner's, which is down below Tamaqua by about 10 miles or so. Got it there. And then went down to West Leesport. These funky old elevators were there, or silos were there. So I got this shot to finish off my chase. And once again, just to try some black and white on it, see how it looked. Okay, I got a confession to make now. I lied to you guys. Yep, I did. I showed this shot earlier. It's been altered. Normally, I wouldn't do an altered photo without, like I'm doing now, actually fessing up to it. There were 2 trash bins in the middle of this shot. And I thought, you know what, I can either push the trash cans out of the way and then put them back in place again after the train goes by. But I opted not to because I still wanted to chase. Photoshop has come out with some AI generation that is beyond phenomenal. Here's the actual photo with the 2 trash bins. All I did was lasso them, hit generate, and they vanished.
That is pretty neat.
It's incredible. And then I lied on this shot here as well. This is not the way the shot looks originally. If you look at the Thindera sign up in the upper right corner, the original had this. All I did was lasso it, hit generate, and it went away. And what really amazed me was that the auto generation even captured the proper curve of the sign and the curve of the pinstripe on the sign.
That's called Photoshop on steroids.
I tell you. So this got me to thinking, maybe some of the older shots could benefit from this. Back in my neophyte days, I shot this shot of a double header on the Morris County Central. Double-headed ex-Southern 280-385 and ex-US Army 060-4039 up in North Jersey. Got the old lasso tool, lassoed those people, and away they went. This is a bit more difficult.
Wow, that's pretty sweet.
I tell you, this is a little more difficult. I had this guy right in the middle of the shot. He looks like I was a neophyte, didn't know any better. So just got the people in the shot. I had this guy standing dead center. So I lassoed him, took him out, and got this, which is almost passable. One thing that is wrong with this is because the guy was standing dead center on the engine there, his elbow was blocking the coupler. And the AI didn't know a coupler actually belonged there on the front of the engine. But it did get the grab irons right on the left-hand side there. I guess it saw the ones on the right and just figured it needed ones on the left as well. This shot you saw before. He pulled up this shot here and said, hey, boy, too bad all those signs are there. I lassoed the 3 signs. One click, gone. So now we're downtown Shamokin, got these pesky sawhorses in the scene. Circled the sawhorses, and they vanish. In this shot here, there's a sign sticking up almost in the middle of the locomotive, up just a little towards the cab, near the middle of the locomotive. There's a sign sticking up. And then I got a sawhorse down there by the pilot. Circled those 2 things, and they went away.
Imagine what you could do with a wedding shoot.
Tell you. Now, I would never present these without context. I'm a journalist first and foremost, so I would never present these out of context. I would use the original shots in all cases. So we're back to the tough one. Here's a shot that we did down at the Southern Appalachia Railway Museum in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, several years ago, with this ugly lift in the background. So I circled the lift and it went away. The only thing I had to do here was because the cut lever on the right hand side is completely has the lift completely behind it. That went away as well. It got the handrails right on its own, the grab irons, but I lost the cut lever, so I had to go back and add that back in manually.
The
You
things you can
define
do-
seaboard coastline. You did well.
And then this shot here from Cohocton, I actually like the guy riding the front of the locomotive, but just to see what would happen, I circled the guy, and it took him right off. The only thing that happened here that would need fixing is actually part of the cut lever is up right in front of his glove on his left hand. And when he vanished, that part of the cut lever also went away. So that would need fixing too. But boy, it does an incredible job.
Imagine what that could do for crew sizes.
I tell you. And then another thing it can do is it can also generate additional content around the edges. This shot here, I got the bottom the bottom of the train too close to the bottom of the frame. The balance isn't quite right. So I went to Photoshop, just pulled the box of contained the photo down a little bit, asked it to add some stuff to the bottom, and it added track and everything.
Hey, Steve.
Yeah,
I tell you, the things you can do with Photoshop nowadays, huh?
it's incredible. Then I went back, just to play around. I went back to this shot here that I took at Sharon Hill on SEPTA's Red Arrow division on the Media Sharon Hill trolley. See the trolley going away underneath the former Baltimore and Ohio main line. Well, a few minutes later, CSX rumbled overhead. I said, what the heck? Let me see what happens. So this is a really poor job. Like I made a meet of the two. If you look carefully, you'll find seams in here. I didn't really go in and smooth everything out. But what really annoyed me was that beam in front of the locomotive. So I went into Photoshop, circled the beam, and it just vanished. I think the only thing wrong here is that the number of openings in the vent underneath the locomotive cab number, I think that those vents go up too high. This is the original. I think they end just below the beam. Oops, I lost my trolley. But Photoshop extended them up, when it generated the AI photo. So that is going to wrap up this week's show. Next show is on June 28th. That is also a Wednesday night. Stanley Cup finals should all be over by then, so no conflicts. Thank you for watching. I'm going to sign off now for the folks on YouTube.
28th is not a Wednesday.
Okay. Calendar reading is not my strong suit.
Can you get a refund on the eye job?
Let me see.
26th is a Wednesday, Steve.
26th?
26th.
26th. Next show is June 26th. Pay no mind to the number on the screen. June 26th.
Man
Wednesday.
behind the cigar.
Sorry?
No mind to the man behind the cigar either. Huh?
That's right. That's right. So I'll sign up for the folks on YouTube here and give me a second and we'll open the floor to questions, comments, and other fun stuff here.